Now I'm ready to sew these blocks together. I've used my digital camera to take a picture of this configuration so I know where all my blocks need to go. Quilters usually sew in rows, so I would sew these two blocks together and then add that block. I would sew these two and then add that block, and I would sew these two and then add that block. Once I have this row completed, I'm going to sew it to this row, and then the last row I'll sew onto this section. So to speed up this process, instead of walking back and forth every time, I like to put right sides together, and I'm holding in my right hand the spot that needs to be sewn. Sometimes I just walk over to my sewing machine holding it in my right hand, and I know that's where the seam's going to go. But other times I like to pin that. So the next section that I'm going to be sewing, put right sides together. And this third section that I'm going to be pinning, I'm going to put right sides together. When I take this over to the machine, I know that if I leave everything lined up like this, that this is the seam I'm going to sew. If I'm a little worried about that, then I'm going to pin each one of these sections. To sew these blocks together, I can just pick them up because I brought them over here with the seam that needs to be sewn. I can just pick them up and put them through, or beforehand I can take some pins and pin the edges. I usually don't like to pin except when I have to match seams, and since I'm not matching any seams here, I usually don't pin, but that's up to you. So I've got these blocks pinned at either end. I'm checking to see that that's lined up, and I'm going to come up to my sewing machine. Now I'm not sewing a 1/4 inch. On my sewing machine, the 1/4 inch line is right here. This is the 3/8 inch line, and this is the 1/2 inch line. So if I'm going to sew this seam, I need to make sure where my 1/2 inch line is. Sometimes I like to mark that with a piece of tape so I don't get confused, because I'm very used to sewing this 1/4 inch on this 1/4 inch line over here. So I'm going to sew a 1/2 inch seam, and I like the settings on my sewing machine to be just a regular stitch length, or sometimes I make it just a little bit bigger. I have an all-purpose foot on. If you have a walking foot, though, that's great. I would be using that, but for this demonstration I'm just going to use an all-purpose foot. So I start with my leader and I push this in, and now that it's caught my fabric, I want to take that pin out. I'm trying to make sure that I'm lined up. I'm going to put my little scissors point there so you can see, and I'm aiming for that edge. I'm going to continue down. Now, I don't know if you can see on the camera, but the fabric's bunching up here. Whenever that happens, I put my needle down, and then I lift up my pressure foot. I'm going to take this pin out, and sometimes I might have to adjust that fabric a little. And if I have to pin it, I'll pin it. If not, I'll just put that down, and I'm ready to sew to the end here. And now I'm going to pick up my next two pieces that I have to sew. Remember, I've laid it on the right side where the seam's going to be sewn, so I know that. I do want to line things up, make sure it's in order. I'm going to sew this one without pins. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 little, on my machine, not everybody's machine, but on this machine, the 1/2 inch mark is 3 little lines over. I always have to check that. I'm going to sew. I don't have my full plate out, or the working space just because I learned on a smaller space like this machine. But if you have another section that goes on your machine, it's good to use it. I'm just going to continue on, and I'm going to pick up the next two sections. I'm going to take that pin out because I just put that there to remind me which seam I was sewing. I'm going to line this up. Make sure everything's nice square, and notice I just push it in there. If I have problems with it taking, the feed dogs taking this up, I have this piece behind here where I can use that to help pull it through, because you are sewing through a number of thicknesses of fabric. There's the two thicknesses on this, and then there's two more underneath, and if you happen to catch some of that batting, that's even more thickness. Now if you can see, this fabric's starting to bunch up, so I'm going to put my needle down and lift up my pressure foot, and I'm going to readjust this fabric. I might want to put a pin in to help me redistribute that fabric, just to make sure that it doesn't all get bunched up in one area. If it does, that's okay, but it's nice to try to readjust it like I just did. So let's get that needle down, and I'm going to push that over a little. I'm used to having a section on my machine where I can do that with my knee, but I took that off. Okay, and let's sew to the end. Coming to the end, I'm going to take my little follower here and stick that down so I can come off, and I'm ready to go back. Let's take one of these off to show you what it looks like. So that's been sewn together. There's a little bunching of fabric there, but you're not going to notice that so much. That's on the back. Let's open it up. The seam on the inside looks like this.